Hello everybody and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. Oh yes, it is. I just had to double check to make sure that it was coming up. Yes, my name is indeed Brian, and this is the Fireside Chat. And today, actually, this is a kind of in response to some suggestions that I've gotten from the Discord patrons, where they had suggested that, sometimes it will be good to talk to people that are, members of the community that are lesser known, and they're, trying to make some content and get out there. So it just so happened to be by providence that while people were making these suggestions to me, and I was sort of like mulling over, okay, how do I go about doing this, while also waiting to hear back from Jordan B. Peterson about being a guest on the show. I heard from this gentleman, Christofferson, I hope that I pronounced that correctly, who has a YouTube channel and discusses issues like circumcision and many other different topics. And he wanted to come on and tell his story of, well, I don't want to speak for this gentleman, but welcome to the show, Christofferson. I'll just start by saying that. So
yes. Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here. It is. I've spoken to you in the past, and you are best. So we had to get the band back together, essentially. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And you basically on your YouTube channel you talk. You talk about history. You rant. You even do some interviews, and you wanted to talk about, I guess, your personal experience.
Yeah.
So we did like a couple of videos earlier, like last week, where we were responding to, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but we were discussing a new academic paper that was called "On the Sexual Assault of Men," and on, I think it was last Friday, I went through the entire paper with my wife, Lindsay, and we looked at a lot of really interesting data, although not surprising, but really interesting data on sexual assault and male victims. And then after that, this might have been the week before, but after that, Hannah with Deborah Powney also went through the exact same paper and discussed it on HBR Talk, which you guys can find if you go ahead and go to our channel, linked right underneath this video. Don't do it now because we're doing a show. You'll find links to both of those. So we'll go through there's one where I just read through the study and we give our impressions, and then there's one where Deborah Powney, who works with victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, male victims, as well as Hannah, go through and discuss the paper in more depth. So please check those out. And it just so happened to be that, timing wise, it seems to me anyway, that it lines up. So I wanted to see if you would be willing to sort of, discuss your story and your experience, with basically, as you describe it, being an outcast from the system, abused by women, and put on every ADHD medication on the market, starting at 10 years old. So, yeah, why don't you, I guess there's a lot. Maybe we should figure out how to begin. So let's start. Yeah, let's start with your earliest, I guess, experiences with abuse.
Well, yeah, I might have to go with the meds specifically.
We'll start with the meds then, yeah.
Yeah, I was, little background. I was always, as a child, very tall and skinny, almost frail physically. I have a condition known as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And as a result, it caused me to be very skinny, very almost anemic, very sickly, very pale, translucent skin, very hypermobile, bendable, things like that. It's a connective tissue disorder, basically. So, but essentially, me being the really tall kid, I was actually the size of a 3-month-old on my second day of life.
Mm-hmm.
How tall I was. And as a result, I was always bullied from that. But I was kind of a hyper child. Really, it was just because of I had two modes. I was hyper and playful and energetic, and then I was sitting reading encyclopedias all day. So it was a bit of both. And the hyper part, all these doctors came out of the woodwork. I lived on air bases most of my life. All these doctors came out and basically said, okay, well, he's hyper and you got to put him on these meds. If not, he's not going to achieve anything as an adult. He's going to have difficulty coping and learning. He's not going to get a job. All this stuff, they basically guilted my parents into believing, which was not the first time they were guilted by authority, might I add. The first time they was with my circumcision specifically. They definitely told my parents that it would prevent cancer and all that fun stuff that I like to think disproved in my circumcision, my anti-circumcision video. They were definitely taught that, you have to do these things to save your child, and who wouldn't want to save their kid, right? So, unfortunately, that ended up causing all the negative effects. I around 16 stopped being hyper altogether. I was actually very calm around that age. So it was kind of obvious I didn't have ADHD. I was put on Strattera. I was put on all sorts of different meds, Ritalin, all like crazy medications that children should never be on, honestly. And another odd thing about all that is I didn't have a temper, but I kind of had, like, I was assaulted a lot as a child by other children and stuff, and I don't really. I guess it's kind of like the berserker kind of stuff, if you want to go there, kind of. But I mean, historically speaking, that what it would be called back in the day. But
yeah,
basically, would try to attack me, and I would defend myself, and I wouldn't remember what I did. So, because adrenaline kicks in, and you don't remember nothing. So, yeah, there was that. My mother and I fought like cats and dogs when I was a teenager, but when I was a kid, we got along perfect. We were always getting along. We didn't have any issues.
Let me ask you this: was your mother? Because you said you grew up on military bases.
Yeah.
Is that right? Was your mother like either living on or near the base, or was she in the military?
My father was military. My mother and I lived mostly on Travis Air Base in California, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there, obviously, but we lived predominantly on Travis. We did a little moving around before then, but not a whole lot. And living there, I went to school in Travis. When center was on the base, because then they moved the base boundaries to kick the school off the base, actually, which is kind of good. But again, other than that.
And you said that you were, I mean, they didn't like apply a diagnosis. They simply saw that you were hyper for a kid, I guess. I don't even know what that means, since most kids are pretty hyper, but right. Maybe even by that standard, and they felt that you needed to be what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, medicated is not quite it. I mean, subdued in some way, right? Yeah.
They diagnosed me as ADHD, ADD.
Okay.
And I'm on the spectrum as well. About my autism and how fun it is, like it's a second person, just to be comical. But I'm right. Technically on the spectrum, but I'm not fully, like, I've learned ways around it as a child
to function, right?
Yeah, I focused on reading people instead of Lego bricks. So as a result, I was able to read people well enough to actually be decent at conversations and stuff. I still don't sarcasm for the life of me half the time, but I can kind of tell where people are coming from. Well, yeah, unless Ale does it, because she's pretty good at being obvious about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is when you were 10 years old that you were diagnosed?
Yes, around there.
And like, what year was that? I'm just wondering how far back this is.
2006, around there.
2006. Okay. All right. So, because when we're talking about medicating kids, and it's almost always boys, but I wonder, I don't want to speak for the whatever the data is, because I don't have it in front of me. I will put this to the audience though. Have you or someone you know been put on these kinds of meds as children, or have you been put on meds like this? Because we've done a show on this subject, but it was a while ago, and Sage Gerard, who I don't know if any of you guys know, because he was like a very vocal men's rights voice going way back to like the 2010s, the golden age. And he was put on lots of medication as a child, and many of the side effects of those things, at least in his estimation, but I don't think that there's any reason to doubt this, he still lives with, and it's had a lot of effect on his processes. And he's a really smart guy, Sage. So if you guys remember Victor Zen or Sage Gerard from back in the day, that's what I'm talking about. But yeah, if there's anyone in the audience that has either been diagnosed and as a boy for being a boy, with things like ADHD or any other number of these kinds of issues, and you've been medicated, let me know what your experiences are in the comments as well as the chat. Okay, so sorry for that massive diversion. I just wanted to let the audience know they can talk about this stuff. But so they put you on Ritalin. Is that the first thing, or was it something else? And what were the effects of that, out of curiosity?
Strattera, Ritalin, a bunch of others. I started to hallucinate as a child, and as a result, to this day, I don't trust myself on what's that drug I don't trust? No, the type of drug. Hallucinogens. Yeah, I don't trust myself.
Oh, hallucinogens. So like mushrooms and stuff.
I don't trust myself doing that stuff at all, just because I've the things I would hallucinate as a child were really bizarre. So I don't want to experience that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. That it would make me kind of paranoid, kind of difficult to determine what's real and what's not, things of that nature. And they ended up seeing me getting very distant socially, way more distant than I ever was before. So my folks kind of took me off the meds and everything, because they're like, yeah, no, he's not doing good on these meds. And a couple years later, I ended up having no symptoms of ADHD at all. So it was obviously a misdiagnosis.
Mm-hmm. So, and they kept changing your meds. Why?
That's a good question. A lot of my med changes were mostly due to the fact that a lot of things didn't seem to work. We were trying to figure what was wrong with me. Oh, yeah. Well, physically speaking, I switched a lot on meds in terms of pain meds because of the EDS that I was born with, but the symptoms developed more towards 15, around there. So that's a few years ahead. A lot of that developed later on around puberty, is usually when EDS fully kicks in. But you get a lot of symptoms as a child. Again, I was very skinny, very pale. You can almost see through my skin, very soft skin. Actually, when I was in like 8th grade, girls used to like pet my hands because of how soft they were, which was really weird. But I just said, okay, whatever. Yeah,
right.
Being a passive child I was. But and I don't know. I'm not entirely sure as to why they kept changing me on the meds, but they knew I had something wrong, and they were trying to figure out. They basically kept slapping all these stickers on it to see which one would respond, essentially.
Do you think that maybe when they put you on a medication that it may not have had either the desired effect that they were looking for or not enough of the desired effect. So maybe you were a bit, I forget the name of the first med, but maybe when they put you on it, you were, slightly less hyper, but still had spikes of being a boy, basically. And they were like, well, that's not working. He's not, he's not like, those sleepy cats at the zoo, like the lions and tigers that seem to just like lay there because they're drugged up.
Funny you mentioned that. In my teenage years, I really was the sleepy tiger at the zoo because I fell asleep in class all the time, like all the time. And it wasn't because I wasn't.
Were you on meds then? Is that why you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was on.
Okay.
I went to a mental health facility for about 5 or 6 months when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
Put me on a bunch of meds, but they put me on different meds that seemed to actually work for some reason.
Okay. So
I'm actually over. I'm sorry. Yeah. A lot of this, like my life seemed kind of rough at school, but for the most part was going all right up until about the age of 12.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a pinnacle moment, pivotal because
Pivotal.
Yeah, pivotal because I believe I was sexually abused.
Okay, so if you're comfortable with it, maybe tell me a little bit about that. Why do you believe that you were, but you're not? Are you not certain?
Basically, I go through periods where I'm not quite sure if it was real or not, unfortunately. But it essentially a DID. It gave me like a dissociative identity disorder. It gave me a lot of symptoms, and that's kind of why I'm quite certain it did happen, was because I had so many symptoms after the fact. I was promiscuous afterwards. I had trouble trusting people. I developed essentially PTSD later on, which was a combination of that and the bullying. But here's the thing, I don't remember as much the event itself. I remember kind of my emotions about it, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But more so what happened immediately afterwards makes me think that something bad did happen, because the girl in question accused me of doing that the next day. She accused me of assaulting her sexually the next day. And because I was this skinny, pale, frail kid, that no one believed it.
This is when you were 12.
Yes, I was essentially falsely accused when I was 12, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Was there, so do you remember what her story was? What the claim is?
The claim essentially was that it wasn't as that she abused me, but that I abused her, and that I also abused a girl that I was friends with at the time, who she actually had a crush on at the same time, ironically.
Mm-hmm.
And allegedly, may have tried to predate on her. I don't know if, I've heard some things that she tried but didn't quite get there. I don't fully know for certain, so I'm not going to say. But again, so more so my symptoms afterwards and how I became very promiscuous afterwards. Before that, I was kind of like what you were talking about. I was guarding my things like a crusader, that's what I was before I was 12. And then afterwards, I just kind of didn't see the purpose in it, I guess, at the time. But I definitely showed symptoms of being abused sexually. I definitely showed those symptoms. So.
Oh, okay. And what are those symptoms?
Well, for example, being promiscuous kind of altered me being passionate sexually. I had some physical scars as a result. I had a scar underneath my glands specifically that scabbed a lot.
Underneath what?
The glands.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I had an atrophic scar.
Yeah.
For those, it's a type of scar that kind of burrows under the skin a little bit. It tends to scab a lot. Mine just healed when I turned 20. Like, I had it since I was like 12 to like 20. I had it for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And starring over and all this stuff. And so again, I have a lot of evidence to believe that I was, but I don't remember the exact event, so I'm not entirely, a part of me doesn't want to accuse anyone without absolutely knowing, but I mean, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that I was. So, I mean, to be fair.
Yeah. You said that you had been accused multiple times by different women over the course of. Can you tell me a little bit about that over the course of how long, and maybe if there were any consequences of these accusations?
Yeah. Well, I was accused of the first one when I was 12. I was accused by a woman of grabbing her butt, even though she wasn't even my type. So,
sure.
Yeah. Although I did help her back because I studied reflexology in my teen years, and I kind of helped her the middle of her spine with like relocations and shit.
Okay.
I was also accused. Essentially, an ex of mine accused me of killing her dog. Apparently, which is very weird to think of because that was my favorite dog that she owned. She had like 3 dogs. My favorite one was this brown elderly dog named, I think it was Bourbon or Brandy or something like that, named after an alcohol. And that was my favorite dog. That dog dies of natural causes, and she essentially blames me, essentially. So,
why would she do that?
That's a good question. I think it was just an excuse to dump me, honestly. And you mentioned the cuffing phenomenon. That seemed to happen a lot in my life. I would typically get it around summer, autumn, around there, and then they would almost always dump my ass in spring. Almost always. Yeah. And
what was that?
Wife's telling me something.
Ever since he was 12, we've noticed that I've kind of put together that he ends up having more issues around springtime.
Yeah.
And a lot of bad things have always happened to him in spring.
Yeah, it's usually spring.
It all started back when he was 12.
Yeah, essentially. I believe that also happened in spring. So spring's kind of a weird time for me, honestly, because of a lot of weird things that happen in my life. But,
well,
Dale's the only one that's making me enjoy spring again because, we actually do stuff in spring that's enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, the cuffing thing is pretty normal, so you're not the only one. I think that people in that age range, like I've been married for a few years now, so Lindsay and I don't have that issue. But if you're, single and looking and sort of playing the field or whatever, the cuffing thing seems pretty common. It's like it starts getting cold. People want to be, they want to find someone to help them through the cold winter, because people tend to be alone in the wintertime as well, if they don't have a partner. So they pair up with someone, and then the winter comes and they have that sort of connection for those months. And then when things start warming up, usually, but not always, people begin to lose interest in each other, or and somebody gets dumped or whatever. It's women almost always initiate breakups, but I'm just to be fair, there are cases where it's mutual or the man does it. And I don't think it's necessarily like sinister. I just think it's people being maybe pragmatic, which can seem as though it's a bit emotionally cold. But what were you going to say?
Well, the only time, just to give you an idea, the only time I initiated the breakup was the one time a girlfriend pulled a knife on me.
Yeah, I think that's cause to initiate a breakup.
That's about the only time I did that, actually. Yeah, 'cause I'm not the type to stay with that. That's once that happens, no, never mind.
If you're getting into relationships with toxic people that pull a knife on you, or maybe they have a history of promiscuity, or they have a history of violence, and other kinds of dysfunction, emotional abuse and manipulation. I think in a way it sort of points to an issue that you're having with forming relationships, or was having, if you want to put it that way. Because then you don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. You don't know what a good woman looks like, or a noble woman. And so you kind of adopt this sort of pragmatic, I'll take whatever I can get attitude. And I'm not saying that you're doing this now, but I'm saying that this is a pattern that I've seen in lots of people I know, and even myself when I was younger. I would think, and I think this is an issue with men today in general, is that they are under the impression that they are, as the feminists put it, not entitled to women. Yeah. And so that in their concern for being perceived as entitled to women, they become a lot less discerning of toxic female behavior and toxic female nature. And so they forgive, or they overlook, or they try to otherwise rationalize, because usually these women, they'll tell you that they're messed up to your face, and a lot of men will ignore it. I mean, they won't explicitly say you shouldn't be with me because I'm going to shank you at some point, but they'll tell you about their own relationship history and how they feel about their parents and other red flags that constantly pop up. And a lot of men ignore it because they're like, well, I don't want to be seen as entitled, so I'm not going to be picky. And this girl's talking to me, which means she must like me. So I think I can make this work. And of course, there's a number of reasons why this happens. It also has a lot to do with that man's relationship to his own, to the women in his own life, usually his mother, but not explicitly, and these sort of unresolved things. So maybe there is something there. And I'm not an expert. This is just what I think. So
actually, to add to that, this is the way I kind of see relationships. Two things. One, polyamory just doesn't really work 90% of the time. So that's one thing about relationships. Two, the way I kind of see it, men need to learn to vet women, and women need to learn to settle for men. That's just from because men are far more willing to settle for any woman, no matter how broke, rich, doesn't matter. But women are really good at vetting men. They're really good at, okay, he doesn't have these traits, he doesn't provide this or whatever. Again, those are good traits to have on both sides, but you need to have the opposite as well.
Yeah, well, I also think that I guess women, it's not that they need to settle. I don't think that that's quite right.
Might be the wrong
It's that no, and I'm not, it could simply be that, we're using different words, and, the left has already screwed up most of the words in the English language. So this is why I got to try to be really clear so that you see where I'm coming from, because we probably don't disagree. It's just the word is what I'm wrestling with. So I don't think it's that they should settle, because I think that women should have standards on the men they want to be with. But the issue is that in too many cases with young women today, especially young women, because I think older women learn their lesson, they are looking for the wrong traits. And I think it comes down to the same issue that men have. Men in general don't know what a noble, honorable woman looks like, because I haven't seen that many of them, and women don't know what qualities they should be looking for in men, because they haven't experienced them either. So they look for men that simply have status and money, and maybe they provide security, but they also have a 5-pound cock, and these other traits that ultimately aren't that important in the long run, but because they're getting their advice on what qualities a good man has from other women who don't know what they're talking about. And so they're just going along with this sort of social pressure to select based on these things. But I think that that also means in order for a woman to appropriately gauge what qualities she wants out of a man, and what the good qualities, not these sort of superficial ones that usually get brought up by other women, feminists, and things like that. In order for them to actually be able to make good on those claims, they also have to observe themselves and their own behavior, and they have to be able to ask themselves, what do I bring to the table? And so that's why, and that's the most important question a man can ask a woman, and a woman can ask herself. What do you bring to the table? Because men built the table. So, and I guess I'm not entirely disagreeing, but I'm kind of adding to what you're saying. I think it comes down to whether or not women know what a good man is, because I think that what we're looking for in terms of the qualities in people are actually not that important.
Yeah, no, that actually, again, you're not wrong. I'm just trying to think of an easier way to say that, so I can kind of...
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, but one thing I did want to talk about is in terms of my history of abuse with women and everything. This isn't a real name; it's a name I gave her, so no one worry about it. But I call it the Minz Saga. And if you don't know, Minz is the name of a cat from an old German poem, Minz und Maus die Katzen. Anyways.
No, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, but yeah. And holy crap, that was a weird saga in and of itself. She was with a guy who was supposed to be a fiance. They never married. They split. After her and I split, her and I were kind of a thing. She told me she loved me and was basically, baiting me with all this romantic language and everything. I was like 18 or 17 around there. I just wanted to be with her and kind of wanted him out of the picture, even though he was a nice guy. I didn't have any problems with the guy himself, but
sure.
It seemed, from what I saw, that they were abusive, specifically him more to her, but I later found out that she faked a lot of the injuries, so, be wary of guys. It can happen, So, and with that, and when I was in high school, I ended up getting in this kind of trio relationship kind of thing with two women.
Okay.
Minz, up to that point, Minz was like, "Oh no, you can date other people. It's okay. We're open relationship. It doesn't matter." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I end up dating these two girls. I didn't want to date two girls, but it's just kind of what happened. And then Minz ends up telling me, "Okay, well, since you're with them, you can't be with me anymore." I'm like, "What? You've been telling me for months now that I should get a girlfriend. What are you talking about?" And she basically guilted me into breaking up with them because I was still in love with her, and then all that ends up falling apart and everything. And she basically destroys the one good friendship I ever had in the process with a man I call Cautious.
Yeah.
Like she basically ruined that friendship because she told him a bunch of lies about me, that I was, conspiring against everyone's back, that I was betraying people, all sorts of crazy shit, and none of it was true. But she, I don't know, like she definitely gated me into this whole concept with the promise of love, and she told me and the other guy that if either of you makes me pick, I'll pick the other one, right? Which kind of set up this dichotomy of him versus me. And instead of because if to get a trio relationship to work, you need everyone to be on the same page and to be with each other. And she didn't want, just wanted two guys all to herself. That was obvious. And I forget the expression, but something about like bucking and beta this or something like that. I don't remember, but no, not buck breaking. The beta something fucks this.
Oh, you're talking about alpha fucks beta bucks?
Yeah, that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of what happened. Kind of. I mean, she was basically going to me for, as you were saying, 5 pounds of meat, and then she was going to him for the soft, supple hand to rest on your shoulder at night. You know what I mean? Like, she was using him for emotional support and me for physical support in that manner. It went on for a couple of years, actually, and that was such a waste of my life. Like, looking back on it, it's like, geez, what,
Because you wanted more at the time?
Well, I just wanted someone who was with me alone, and
You wanted a commitment.
Yeah, I wanted a commitment, and I was whole polyamory thing, but not really because I wanted to. It was more so because all the women around me were like, "Hey, let's have polyamorous things." And I'm like, "Okay,
yeah." Well,
yeah, and now I'm with a woman who actually commits, so I'm happy now.
yeah, right. No, I was just gonna say this is actually an interesting point that you're making, which it reinforces my idea that if women, and this is something I've said for a while, but if women are the gatekeepers to sex, which they are, and that's just the reality, because they are the key to reproduction, and honestly, even though sex feels good, the purpose of it is reproduction. It has a purpose. So women are the gatekeepers to sex, i.e., they're the gatekeepers to reproduction. They're the gatekeepers to legacy for men. But if that holds true, and I'm fine with accepting that as a reality, men must be the gatekeepers to commitment. They must be, and the reason for that is because otherwise you basically give women the ability to control whether or not a intimacy occurs and whether or not a relationship occurs. And that means that men can't have an opinion on that. And that's how you end up in relationships you're not entirely comfortable with, because you think that women are the ones that control that, and they don't. A relationship does not take place if the man doesn't want to. And there is no reason why a man should. But the thing is, we're living in a bit of a lopsided world where men don't think they get a say, or they don't think that they are allowed to have their own standards, and they don't, in some ways, think that they have a right to their own chastity, because we shame men for their chastity, right? And one of the reasons for this is because we basically, it's not even that women want this from men, it's that we don't want to deny them the option. And so we basically, position women as the people who get to decide, and men just go along with whatever. And so if you don't, and I mean, like, some people might say, 2 girls, that sounds great, but if it's not what you want, it's not. And besides, that sounds like a headache anyways. And it'll probably, if you were to like start a relationship with both of them, it's just going to cost you twice as much money. So it's not all it is cracked up to be.
That, and all you have to do is piss one off, and she gets her sister involved, and next thing you know, you're dealing with all club. And
and the truth is, honestly, when people are like sharing partners, and not in every case, but I would argue in most cases, it's kind of like it's not something people are entirely comfortable with, because human beings are pair bonding. That's what we do. It is in our nature to be monogamous. That's the natural state. Some people, it doesn't work for them. That's fine. That's your business, whatever. But it's not the norm, and it's not simply interchangeable. Most people want to be in committed monogamous relationships. This is not me making a prescription. I'm not saying this is what as God intended. I'm not doing any of that. I'm simply pointing out the biological reality, which is that most people want to be in relationships with one person, because that's enough work. And if men knew if they understood that they have the power to say no to women, then we would probably have a much different like dating landscape than we do now. So
yeah.
But I mean, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, like for example, with my wife here, she's big into the monogamy thing too, and I was finally able to find someone who was not just committed but actually pursued me back, because I was right before Ale, I was dating off and on a few different people, off and on, but they never really pursued me back. It was a long distance thing. They kind of, they would talk to me for like a couple weeks and then just ghost me for 3 months and then talk to me for a couple weeks. It was this constant cycle. And on top of that, we've had multiple women try to break us up. We've never had a man do that. Like,
well, yeah, sure.
Like,
sure.
We've had 3 different women try to break us up. 2 of them I didn't even know. One of them was like an ex of mine. Okay, 2 of them were exes, and the one was the one we didn't know, right, from that website. Yeah, we didn't even know the other one, and no, that other one wasn't. Oh, well, kind of. Actually, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, 3 exes. Jeez, yeah. Again, like that was just, long sausage,
yeah.
But we've never had. I mean, there's guys who talk to Ale and they're friends with her and everything. I don't care. They never try to intercede with us or anything, and it's everything's fine.
I actually do kind of want to mention something about this. I tell Chris he can look at any message that in between me and another man. I do not care.
Yeah.
He is allowed to see whatever he wants to.
Yeah.
Because I do not want him feeling like I'm hiding something from him. Because I know a lot of guys. I know that he's been cheated on multiple times, and I want him to feel comfortable to know that he can look at my phone or whatever and see what's going on, because I do not want him to not trust me.
Yeah, and I do the same thing for Ale. I let her look at my Facebook and stuff, and
sure.
I don't. So again, it's if you guys have any issue, to anyone listening, if you have issues with being committed in the past or with people cheating on you or whatever, then just say, okay, this is my stuff. You can look at it. We'll just be open, looking at each other's stuff, but it's just you and me against the world. And
honestly, if somebody says no, which I understand that, privacy and everything, like I don't look at Chris's messages like every day.
Yeah.
But I feel like that the option should still be there.
Yeah.
Like, don't invade privacy, but let the option be there.
Yeah.
Like, and if somebody does disagree with that for privacy reasons, to me, that's kind of a red flag.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on how, how close you are in that. So, I mean, in your case, it's fine. But I think, like, if I started dating a girl and she was like, I need to look at your DMs, that would be a red flag. Because it would tell me that she doesn't, that like we're just starting out and she's already, being really controlling. So it sort of depends on how far along, but I take your point. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with it. I'm just sort of like clarifying. But I want to go back to the accusations that you have gotten. I want to know if there have been any negative consequences to you for these accusations, or maybe examples of, how this could have actually done like serious harm.
I was accused of cheating, which I've never done, but I was accused of doing that when I was about 14 or 15. And that made me kind of a pariah in one of the groups I was in. So I just found another group and they didn't give a shit. They didn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So I did experience some negative drawbacks in terms of socially, but other than that, I mean,
like you lost friends or something like that.
I lost a few friends over the accusation of cheating, but other than that, I mean, most people didn't believe the stuff because I was so polite to people, and people had a good rapport with me. Typically, I was always people best I can. Yeah, well, and again, that's just what's weird about it is because no, I know. Well, anyway, and that's just kind of the thing. Like, what with what was I gonna say? What with
You were talking about how you lost some friends, and yeah.
One group I got into, I was like the only goth in the whole group, like, which is kind of comical, but I got in that group. A lot of them were doing drugs and stuff, but they didn't really mind me being there because we were all kind of social outcasts, kind of formed together, kind of. So there was that at least, but I don't really keep up with much people I knew in high school, honestly, especially because I changed schools a few times. I went from Vanden to Sierra something. I forget what that school's called, but it was like a special needs kind of school. And I was also at Willow in Nevada. That was the school / mental health facility I was in. Willow Springs.
What age range was that?
16. I was 16 when I went to Willow Springs.
Okay. All right. Okay.
No, I didn't. No, I graduated from Willow. Or no, not Willow. Wait, Willow? Solano. I graduated from Solano. Which, by the way, because I transferred across state lines, they tried saying that I didn't have enough credits. It was half of a quarter of a credit.
Sure.
That they didn't want to let me pass high school and I literally had to fill out like 8 sheets of paper just to pass high school at the last minute. I got some stories about Vanden. I was accused of demon magic.
Oh, well.
I mean, again, being the token goth, it just happens, but, you know.
I mean, if you did, that's hot.
Oh, my wife. Anyways, so basically a TV turned on and I laughed at it, so everyone thought I used demon magic to turn it on.
Okay.
And that's one of the things I was accused of. I'm not joking. Like,
no, I don't think that has much to do with you being a male, but because I'm sure there's a witch somewhere that's done it too. But yeah, it is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, because we're almost at the top of the hour here. Are you still on any of these medications, and if you're not, when did you stop taking them?
Most of the meds I stopped taking around 17, 18, 19. I am currently on, let me read you my list here. Duloxetine, which is for depression. I'm on risperidone, which is for like Tourette's and some autism symptoms. I'm taking an antibiotic right now because of my tooth, but I'm on ibuprofen for pain and oxy for pain because of the Ehlers-Danlos. But other than that, I mean, it's just like 2 really mental pills that I take. The risperidone, which kind of helps me with some autism symptoms, sensitivity to light, stuff like that. And my Tourette's. It helps with it. It calms my Tourette's. Like, you probably couldn't tell I had Tourette's in this entire interview.
But, no, you seemed pretty level in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean.
So, and do you still have any contact with any of the people who have accused you, or your parents, or anything like that? People that you've, I guess, like dealt with in a hostile environment. Like you said that when you became a teenager, you fought with your mother a lot. So I guess I'm wondering if you still talk to her, have contact, or with any of your exes or any of that.
Well, around the age of 21 or so, I'm 25 now, but around the age of 21, 22, my mother and I actually, we started getting along. We stopped fighting completely. We're on great terms now. We don't ever fight anymore, like at all. Or I might have been about 22 or so, but yeah, about 22. But I just turned 22, and I got out of staying at a friend of mine's place where I was assaulted. But that's beside the point. And I got out of that place, and afterwards, my mother and I just got along perfectly. Like, and I think it's because I learned some humility at that place. Because it wasn't just her fighting with me. It was kind of, you know, sometimes she would start, then I would continue, or the other way around. You know, it was a back and forth kind of thing.
Sure.
And part of that was just me, you know, being a teenager. But again, and with that, you know, definitely made amends and everything, and we talk. I mean, my folks are moving to California to God knows where, but yeah, one of the Carolinas, I think, maybe. I don't know where, but anyways, so they're doing that.
I think everybody should leave California, but
yeah, that's what
but anyway, but go on.
Yeah, I came to Iowa, so but again, like I still talk to them every other week or so. You know, I still contact my folks.
Did when you said that you know, you started getting along with your family again? Did you is this just something, because sometimes, you know, you have like issues with your parents, or maybe a sibling or whatever, you know, relatives, and there's a lot of a deep-seated grudge for some, you know, something happened, there was abuse or injustice or something, and then a period of time passes, and you just kind of like treat it like water under the bridge, and everyone just goes back to normal, or you confront it directly and have like a heart-to-heart about it so that you can deal with it. Which one of those things did you do with regards to your mother?
Well, I had a heart-to-heart about the abuse I went through at 12. She actually didn't know that until I was like 22, 23, when I finally told her. A lot of that just had to do with me not wanting her to feel like she was to blame, because I don't think my folks are to blame for, like, the circumcision, for example. I don't, you know, they were lied to. They didn't know it would cause chafing and scabbing and all these other issues. They didn't know that.
Sure.
No, I would develop Ehlers-Danlos. Like, there's so many things that I could blame them that I can't, because they didn't know. They were unaware of these things, you know? And when I told my mother that I was abused sexually, she's like, oh, well, now everything makes sense. Now that's why you were acting out, and that's why you were very uncomfortable around certain people and things, you know, socially awkward, that kind of stuff. So, you know, that kind of, I think, made everyone realize, okay, so that's what happened. And then with that, we kind of water under the bridge after that, kind of. So it was a bit of both, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I only asked because I know that I've seen this happen in my own family where, you know, like they'll be fighting between relatives, and then they'll stop talking to each other for a while, then time passes, and then there's this sort of sentiment that gets thrown around. Well, hey man, blood is thicker than water, and then people just pretend as though everything is okay, but you know that resentment is still there, because whatever this is about, whatever the issue or the disagreement or the fight was about, was not actually resolved. And so someone, if not both parties, but at least one of the parties, while they go around and pretend as though everything is normal, there's just stuff that isn't addressed. And I think that is the reason why I bring it up, is because I've seen it as a corrupting force. It basically like eats away at people, and it eventually, it only gets worse until you deal with it. It's like a cancer. You have to cut it out. Otherwise it's only going to get worse, and you have people just pretending like everything is okay, because again, you know, family, right? So, and that's especially true with family, because with friends and girlfriends and boyfriends, you can just cut them out of your life and whatever. But with family, you kind of like, you know, they're always there. You have to deal with them at some point. So that's the reason why I brought it up. So I got a super chat, and then I think we're going to go into the patron show and hang out with the patrons, maybe talk about things like culture and media or whatever. Mr. Roboto gives us $5 and says, jealousy is a wasted emotion in adult relationships. If you don't prioritize you and yours, like all things, it will end. Wow, that's the most clear Mr. Roboto super chat I've ever read. Thank you, Mr. Roboto.
Like we get people clap for Roboto-chan. He's doing great.
Yeah.
He just types really screwed up messages all the time with zero context. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But that's why we like him. That's why he's a cool dude. But anyways.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate the support, Mr. Roboto. Thank you so much. All right, so I think that this is good, and I think I'm going to go into the patron show, hang out with the patrons. So I want to ask you guys, let me know what your thoughts are on this. How much of these things have you had experience with? We're trying a little, you know, something a little bit different. Maybe just sort of talking to people that are involved in the men's issues community. I don't know if that's even the right word for it. I'm still working it out. I don't like saying men's rights activists because I don't think it's quite accurate enough. And I don't like saying red pill or manosphere because, again, I don't know if they would consider me one of them, and I have issues with them as well. So I'm just going to say whatever this conversation is about gender and, you know, and the larger culture. So let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. And again, if you've had experience with these kinds of things, of accusations, being diagnosed with ADHD or some other condition, autism, etc. I know that it's one of those things that's either overdiagnosed or it is a trend that we are not perhaps discussing honestly, in my opinion, or at least not completely. But yeah, let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. In the meanwhile, I'm going to go into the Discord's server and hang out with the patrons. If you guys want to join us, you have to become a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, where you'll be able to participate in all of the additional activities, the community. There's lots of extra content, things like that. This after show is going to be taking place in the Talkies, which is basically accessible to anyone. So we can have like a big group of people hanging out and talking. If the guests are, you know, really busy and kind of high profile, I usually make it very restrictive so that there isn't like a big crowd of people in there. But in this case, this is a bit more casual. So, you know, we'll just go into the Talkies and hang out with the other patrons there. So if you guys, let me get all queued up here. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, first of all, kind of to add to what you were saying, I consider myself more of like a men's rights advocate than activist.
Yeah, sure.
Because I, in my spare time, do advocate for rights. Like, for example, one big thing about me is I really want us to, as a society, for just some weird reason I don't know why, but I want us to make stealing sperm more illegal than stealing rainwater. Just saying. Like, that's just my whole thing I want to fix. Like, you know, because apparently that's a thing. So
yeah, yes, sure.
God, Seder, my friends, go with God, please.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, appreciate it. All right. Thank you guys so much. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. I say leave a comment. Yes. And most importantly, please share this video. If you just share it with one person, it could be a tremendous help to us. We just want to try and reach as many people as we can. And you know, it's a conversation. It's not a dictum. I'm not telling you, you know, what you should think, and I'm not claiming to be the arbiter of truth here, but we find the truth through conversations. So let's have some. All right. Thanks, guys, for coming on today's episode of the Fireside Chat. And thank you to my guests for taking the time to come on, and we'll talk to you in the next video.
If you're struggling with alcohol or drugs, Recovery Centers of America can help. RCA's local inpatient and outpatient treatment programs are founded on science and delivered with heart. At RCA, they tailor your treatment to you and also offer specialized programs for patients experiencing a relapse or with history of trauma, for young adults, adults 50 plus, and the LGBTQIA plus community. Recovery Centers of America answers the phone and admits patients 24/7. Don't wait. Call 1-888-RECOVERY now. That's 1-888-RECOVERY.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.